When Yeshua charges out of heaven on his bloodied white battle stallion, the angels cry out to the vultures, "Prepare to feast on the flesh of kings and captains and the great men of the earth." The next day, the architects of the New World Order are but bird droppings on the face of the earth, and Yeshua is seated upon his throne in the city of Jerusalem. The first time Yeshua came, he came to bring a sword of division, to separate the children of God from the children of the world. The next time he comes, he will bring peace to the earth, and he will use a rod of iron to establish that peace. Believe it or not, the king is coming back. Yeshua warned his disciples that there would be those who proclaim him as the Messiah, and yet they would deceive many, and that they would do their very best to mislead the very elect of God for their own advantage. He cautioned his disciples to instruct their disciples to take heed to his instructions. He alerted them that false prophets would set a snare in the path of his followers in the last days, and if they didn't heed his warning, they would be offended, and they would end up hating and betraying each other to the death. When the abomination of desolation transpires, Yeshua warns those who are still in Jerusalem to get out immediately. Do not return from the field to get a coat or blanket. You don't have a second to spare. Pray that it is not on the Sabbath. All public transportation is shut down. Pray that it is not in the winter. It gets cold outside. The abomination of desolation will begin great tribulation that has never been experienced in the history of mankind. Manipulative propaganda will confuse reality for the majority. Only those who heed the warning of Yeshua have a hope of enduring faithfully to the end. In those days of tribulation, if anyone says to you, "The Messiah is over here or over there," do not believe it. It is not me. False messiahs and false prophets will exhibit great signs and wonders. They will do everything in their power to deceive the very elect. Behold, look, I am foretelling this. Listen to me. If anyone says to you, "Behold, look, he is here in a deserted place. Go out to see him." It is a trick. Do not go out to find me. It is not me. If others say that I'm coming in Tamion, in secret, do not believe them. My coming will be like lightning ripping the sky open from the east to the west. Yeshua says emphatically, he is not coming back Tamion. It will not be in a secret rapture, nor will it be before the abomination of desolation, which begins great tribulation. False prophets will insist that he is coming back in a secret rapture. Do not believe them. But people love fantasy novels, swoon over special effects movies, and embrace tradition rather than heed the words of the prophet who foretold and forewarned us of such deception. No one will be able to miss his coming. No false sign will be able to duplicate it. Yeshua told us when he is coming back and what it will look like. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And that is when the sign of the Son of Man shall appear in heaven. All the tribes of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. He shall send his angels forth with a great sound of a trumpet, and they, the angels, shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. What is a sign of his parousia, his coming? the sky ripping open, with divine bolts of lightning reaching as far as the eye can see and beyond. He sends his glorious angels to the graves of the righteous dead in the four corners of the earth. The dead are raised with an incorruptible body. The living are changed. The mortal are clothed with an immortal body. This is the moment when we are literally born again. Born into a body that can inherit the kingdom of heaven, because flesh and blood cannot approach the Almighty. As Shaul, Paul said, there is a terrestrial body, an earthly body, and there is a celestial body, a body that is no longer flesh and blood, an eternal body. The change from the earthly body to the celestial body will happen in the twinkling of an eye. When will the change transpire? At the last trump. The tribulation of those days begins with the abomination of desolation and the revealing of the man of sin, the son of destruction. Yeshua returns long after the sun, moon, and stars have been darkened in the aftermath of a war that is going to bring mankind to the brink of destruction. He warned us 2,000 years ago that false prophets, those pretending to speak for him, would teach that he is coming back in a secret, tamion, hidden, unobserved, with no visible precursor to his coming. Yeshua said, listen to me, don't believe them. They have either been deceived or are deliberately lying to you. There will be no pre-tribulation secret rapture. They are setting you up for the greatest disappointment you could ever imagine. You will be offended because you thought he would be coming back before the abomination of desolation and before the great and glorious harvest. And when he doesn't, because he won't, you will hate and betray each other to death. Do not fall for the lies and the systematic theology that picks a line here and a line there, a verse here and a verse there, and assembles a delicious religious buffet that will poison and destroy. Yeshua's direct instructions to his disciples concerning the end of the age and the deceptions that will be promulgated in his name sets the stage for the sixth trumpet, which is the second woe to the inhabitants of the earth. The second woe begins with the sounding of the sixth of seven trumpets and the invasion of a 2 million man army from the east that kills a third of the population of the earth. Yeshua then commissions another angel to communicate the really bad news. Revelation chapter 10, verse 1. Then I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow upon his head. His face shone like the sun. His feet were as pillars of fire. He had in his hand a small scroll open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. He cried with a loud voice that sounded like a roaring lion. When he had cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. When the 7 thunders had spoken, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven. Stop! Seal up those things that the 7 thunders uttered. Do not write them. Yeshua's instructions to Yohanan and John were to write everything he had just seen, write the things that are now, and the things that shall be hereafter. John was just following orders. But as he began to write the contents of the little scroll, Yeshua's voice boomed from heaven. Stop! Do not write! He does not want his servants to know the things that are detailed in the little scroll. But why? The angel, which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth, lifted up his hand to heaven, and swore by him that lives forever and ever, who created heaven, and the things that are therein, and the earth, and the things that are therein, and the sea, and the things that are therein. There shall be no more delay. In the day the 7th angel sounds, the moment he begins to blow his trumpet, the mystery of God shall be executed, just as he declared to his servants, the prophets. That is the greatest news imaginable. With all the death, destruction, torture, and tribulation, this is the proclamation that we are almost home. At the moment the seventh angel begins to blow, the pain and strain of tribulation are immediately relieved. The mystery of God is executed, just as Yeshua declared to his prophets, Daniel and Shaul, Paul. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, we shall not all be dead, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Yes, this is the victory over death. This is the promise of eternal life. But Yeshua gave his prophet Shaul even more revelation concerning this mystery, and he then shares it with the saints in Thessalonica. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord shall not precede, shall not go up before those who have died. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Messiah shall rise first. Then we, which are alive and remain, shall be caught up, harpazo in Greek, rapturo in Latin, caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, this is why you can comfort one another with these words. Yes, this is the execution of the mystery of God and its timing. The dead are raised first and given an incorruptible body to replace their corrupted, their decayed body. The living will then put on, be clothed with an immortal body. This is what Yeshua told Shaul. And now, at the cryptic revealing of the seven thunders, he is confirming the same timing of his coming to Yohanan. When the seventh trumpet sounds, that is when the mystery, the heretofore unrevealed secret, is executed. But we must first go through the gauntlet of the seven thunders. Yohanan is allowed to tell us everything the angel says except for the seven thunders. The voice from heaven spoke to me again. Go, take the little scroll which is open in the hand of the angel which is standing upon the sea and upon the earth. I went to the angel and said, give me the little scroll. He said, take it and eat it all. It will make you nauseous, but it will be sweet as honey in your mouth. I took the little scroll out of the angel's hand and ate it all. And it was in my mouth sweet as honey. But as soon as I had eaten it, I became nauseous. The scroll he eats is the scroll of the seven thunders. Yohanan is not allowed to divulge its contents, but Yeshua tells him to communicate the seven thunders another way that will make sense to his faithful servants. The good news that we are almost home, that the harpazo, the rapturo, the gathering together of the resurrected saints with the living saints who are changed, is just one trumpet blast away. That good news is sweet to the taste. But living through the seven thunders, even hearing about them is nauseating. If we knew what we would have to endure, we would faint. We cannot imagine how John Huss, who was burned at the stake for his uncompromising stand on the truth, could sing praises to God as the fat dripping from his burning body caused the flames to rise higher and higher until his lights went out. If John Huss would have known in advance the torture he would have to endure, he may have taken an easier path. William Tyndale was strangled to death. his body incinerated because he dared translate the Bible into English. His last words were a prayer: "Lord, open the King of England's eyes." His prayer was answered. Now, more than 80% of the King James Version of the Bible in my hands is the work of William Tyndale. This book was bought with the blood of saints who could have taken an easier path, and maybe would have taken an easier path had they known the road ahead of them would be so rough. One thing of which we can be sure: God's grace empowers us to do the impossible, to live a holy, a righteous, and a godly life in the middle of a sick, twisted, and perverse world. The angel cried, "There shall be no more delay." In the day the seventh angel sounds his trumpet, the moment he begins to blow, the mystery of God shall be executed, just as he declared to his servants the prophets. Daniel was the other prophet who saw the period of the seven thunders. The people that know their God shall be strong and do exploits. They that understand among the people shall instruct many. Yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days. When they stumble, when their strength fails, they shall be helped with a little help. Even those who understand shall fall, to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. The appointed time for the blowing of the seventh trumpet is the subject of Revelation chapter 11. It takes us back to the time of the abomination of desolation and states that for the next 42 months, the city of Jerusalem is going to be trodden under the foot of the Gentiles. Yeshua told his disciples to get out of Jerusalem with all haste when the abomination of desolation transpires. But there are two exceptions to that rule. "I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. If any man attempts to hurt them, fire comes out of their mouth and devours their enemies. This is how they will die." These 2 witnesses have the authority to shut heaven so that it will not rain for the duration of their prophecy. They have the authority to turn water into blood and to strike the earth with any plague that they desire. When their testimony is finished, the beast that ascends out of the abyss shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. This is when I believe all of us will die, when our testimony is finished. So my advice is get a testimony and drag it out as long as you possibly can. When you've sung your song, it's over. Rest in the grave until the resurrection, which for you will be your next conscious moment. Yohanan says dead bodies bloat in the street of Jerusalem for 3.5 days. No one bothers to bury them. The whole city parties like the depraved citizens of Sodom and the degenerates of Egypt. But after 3.5 days, the unexpected happens. The 2 men stand on their feet. They hear a great voice call out to them from the heavens, "Come up here, come up hither." The earth quakes. The people cry out in terror as 1/10 of the city crumbles. 7,000 are buried in the rubble. Some of the people recognize that this is the hand of the Almighty, but their response is too little, too late. The 2 witnesses ascend to the throne room and answer to the call of the Kohen Gadol, Yeshua, the high priest of heaven. They are brought before the heavenly court to give their testimony, a witness that has been rehearsed tens of thousands of times in the temple in Jerusalem. Each month, as the last sliver of the old moon fades in the light of the rising sun, the nation of Israel knows that either 1.5 or 2.5 days later, the first sliver of the new moon will be sighted just after sunset in the western sky, and the new month will begin. Since all of the appointed times of the Creator, the feast of the Lord, are determined by the lunar calendar rather than a mechanical device, the sighting of the new moon is of utmost importance in keeping Israel's appointments with the Almighty. The protocol for establishing the new month was part of the temple observances every month. At the expected time, Israelites would watch the western sky for the appearance of the first sliver of the new moon, just after sunset. When sighted, the witnesses would go up to the temple in Jerusalem and call out to the guard that they had sighted the new moon. The guard would confirm that there were at least 2 witnesses present, and then the high priest would be notified. The temple guard would open the gate. The high priest would shout down to the witnesses the same words that the Almighty shouted down to Moses, who stood at the base of Mount Sinai. "Come up hither, come up here." The 2 witnesses gave their testimony before the elders of Israel in the judgment hall, and when their testimony was verified, the high priest would shout out, "Sound the trumpet!" The moment the trumpet sounded, it was the Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. A signal fire was ignited on the Mount of Olives, and from mountaintop to mountaintop, throughout the land of Israel and beyond, signal fires were lit. Shofars were sounded, and the new month began. But this monthly practice was only a rehearsal for the holy convocation in the 7th month. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 24, "In the 7th month, in the first day of the month, ye shall have a Sabbath, a memorial of the blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation." Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets, is the only feast of the Lord, the only appointed time of Yehovah that begins on the first day of the month. Every year it begins on a day and hour that no man knows. We know that it is approaching. We know that it is in the peak of harvest. We know when the moon disappears at sunrise that it is approaching, that we must get ready. But we do not know the day or hour. We must get our garments washed and set aside for the moment that the trumpet sounds. If we are not ready, if we are not prepared, and the trumpet announces the high Sabbath has begun, we miss our only opportunity. We are shut out from the celebration. The door closes. There is weeping and wailing and great remorse. When the trumpet sounds on Yom Teruah, the women at the millstone grinding leave their work immediately. The men who are in the fields harvesting leave their work and go home to put on their white apparel that has been prepared ahead of time. The pagans just keep on grinding and harvesting. They have no interest in the feast of the Lord. The 2 witnesses are called to the throne room by the high priest to testify to the sighting of the first sliver of the new moon. Yeshua cries out, "Sound the trumpet!" And the 7th angel sounds the last trumpet at the appointed time on Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets. That, my friend, is the harpazo, the rapturo, the gathering together of the saints. This is the gospel, the good news of the revelation. It is on this bleak and desolate Isle of Patmos that John received the revelation of Yeshua as the Messiah, the Almighty Judge who will rule the earth with absolute power and authority. Though the rulers of this world conspire against Yehovah and against the Messiah, the Almighty will have them in derision as their plans of global dominion are incinerated before their eyes. The minions who have bowed at the feet of Satan for their piece of the New World Order will have their hopes dashed upon the rock as Yeshua destroys those who attempt to annihilate Israel and nullify the everlasting covenant God made with his people. Yes, all of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Every nation that stands against that covenant will find itself on the battlefield against the Almighty. I'm Michael Rood, bidding you shalom, peace. And I will see you on the sea of fire and glass when the smoke clears.
are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Do not touch that dial. Do not click off that page. We are Lamb Radio.
What does it mean to you to live life Torah style?
What does it mean for me? I think it's my whole life, Mark. I think that I can never go back to just being a normal believer. I think to walk out this faith has changed my life. It's who I am. It's what the Father has made me. It's very important, I think, to me too. But in the same breath, I can actually say that it's become important for me to teach others. Not because I feel I'm right, but I think it's become important for me to teach others because it's what is needed. I think that I love people, and I think to walk this out is to really reveal to others who our Messiah is. I think that's what's important for me at the moment there.
We are grateful you appreciate this radio station and the message it promotes about the true lifestyle of hope given in teachings and in songs of worship. Your humble donations will ensure the continuance of the message of hope to brethren worldwide by Messianic Lamb Radio. Shalom. I'm Susan Hoogie of Messianic Morning Prayers. Are you seeing the potential for prophecy to be fulfilled in our day? Does this cause you to be fearful of the future? And are you fearful for family members who are not like-minded? There are plenty of scriptures where God tells us not to fear. In Psalms 118 verse 6, we are told this: "The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me?" How do we not fear? Quite simply, we need to develop a relationship with our God and learn who He is, and not just learn about Him. Just as soldiers train for battle, or police train with a partner, they come to know each other intimately and rely on each other for their very lives. They do not doubt their comrades. They know that they are cared for and watched over, and they too do the same in return. This is what we are to do in our relationship with our God. Messianic Lamb Radio is focusing on being a sanctified tool for our powerful and majestic God to use to teach us all about how to have a very close relationship with Him. Let's do this together.
You're listening to Messianic Lamb Radio.